advancements.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everyone. Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, and welcome to a Sunday evening edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here, of course, with Russell Dobler once again.
Hello.
All right, we got some business.
Those were some smoking jams you put together there, Keaton.
Thank you. That's one of my favorites. It's a newer playlist I put together. That playlist is from Epidemic Sound, so the music is licensed through there. So that's not from the YouTube library. That's from the audio library that we got licensing rights to when we did the Jose Vega documentary. So that is safe for us to use on YouTube because we signed up for a membership with them. But yeah. Those are fun. That gets the blood pumping. That gets you in the mood, right? That gets you going. It's a night show. Some of you guys may need a little pick-me-up, but we got a lot of you here. In fact, enough for 2 Iron Maiden drops. 963 strong in the YouTube chat, 762 in the Rumble chat. We'll give it a second or two so the copyright police don't think we played more than 5 seconds at a time. So we'll go 3, 2, 1, and
Good
now
thinking.
for the Rumble. What a crowd. What a crowd in here. Beautiful to see you all here this evening. Lots going on tonight. We do have our post-show Q&A on Rumble tonight, so get ready to go over to Rumble. Towards the end of the show, we do have one segment that we're going to be doing on Rumble in addition to the Q&A, so we will let you guys all know when it is time to head over there. And also, this does mark a new era in Do Dissidents history as the calendar turns to March, because we are now a 4-show-a-week podcast. So our first 4th show is going to be this Wednesday at 2 p.m. Now, some of those shows, some of those 4th streams are going to be Rumble exclusives. And to kick things off, we are making this Wednesday's program a Rumble exclusive. Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. So you got to go sign up. If you're not subscribed to us there, you got to go rumble.com/Do Dissidents and hit that follow button and join our Substack, because you'll get a reminder that morning, hey, live stream today at 2 p.m. Don't come to YouTube looking for it. It will be a Rumble exclusive. Not all of them will be. Most of them probably will not be. But part of the purpose of doing a 4th show is to make it an uncensored show. And we are going to kick off our 4th stream of the week on Rumble. So make sure you head over there. Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Of course, we'll be back here Tuesday at 9 p.m. before that. But yes, this marks 4 shows a week territory right now. So we're not going to waste any time tonight, because it is 7:13 here on the East Coast of the United States, 6:13 over in New Orleans, where Russell is, which is Central Time. But it is a quarter after midnight in England, and that is where our special guest for the evening joins us from. You know him as the owner of the fairest Airbnb in all the land. He is also an activist and a close friend of Mr. George Galloway, and volunteer with his very successful campaign. So please put your hands together in the chat, everybody, for Ian Puddick. Ian, what's going on
Our
again?
man in England.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are going to jump right in just a second, but you told us a story off air that you were feeling a little under the weather today, and I want you to give your testament to socialized medicine, because Ian told me, hey, I had a cold earlier, I was feeling a little short of breath, so I went to the hospital, and thankfully I got checked out and everything was all good. And I said, when did you go to the hospital? He said, an hour ago.
Yeah,
really?
Tell them of the horrors of your system.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm forgive me if you can hear me, but I've got man flu. But fortunately, it's not going to come down the system to get you.
That's right.
So yeah, man flu. I'll be fine. I feel fine, apart from being all bunged up and stuff. But I checked my oxygen levels earlier. And they were sort of 91, 92, 93%. It should be 95, 97 plus.
Right.
So I rung the national, it's called the NHS, the National Health Service, 111, free phone, speak to a doctor. And, you know, he went through everything with me, and he said, yeah, it's on the low side. Look, let me just make an appointment at the hospital for you now. So this was at 9:10. And he said, I can do 9:30. Now, the hospital's up the road, so it's fine. I can do 9:30 or I can do 9:50. And I said 9:30. And I literally put the phone down and zoom, Speedy Gonzales, I was there. And, you know, I had to wait 15 minutes or so.
That's terrible. 15.
Well, I'll be honest,
15 minutes.
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I kicked up a stink like you wouldn't believe. The horrors. It's great. It's great. So they checked me over, and they said, yeah, no, you're fine. And also when they checked me, my sort of oxygen levels were up to 97 and a bit. So it's fine. Absolutely fine.
I couldn't believe it, because I said, when did you go to the hospital? He said, yeah, I just got back an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago. And because I was thinking, if that happens to us here, and this is what Jon Stewart would call the price of freedom, right?
Yeah, the price of freedom.
That happens to us here, where we have to go to the emergency room to get checked out. With that kind of thing going on, we'd be there for at least 6 hours. And, you know, even with a decent insurance plan,
even with
looking
insurance,
at a $300 copay. Yeah.
It's not like if you have insurance, you get treated that way. You don't.
No. Insurance, no insurance, 6 hours and $300 you'd be looking at here if that happens.
You can have private medical care.
Yeah, sure. I know how it works. Yep.
Yeah. So you have that here. So if you can have a major op, if you do it on the National Health Service, it's going to take longer. If you have private medical insurance, it's going to happen faster. But it's the same doctors. It's not different doctors. It's the same medical consultants, whether you have it on the National Health Service or private. It's the same people.
Right. Yeah. Just amazing. Incredible. Well, we're glad you're feeling
and you
good.
don't have medical bankruptcies.
And no medical bankruptcies.
No.
I saw one of the best memes to like bring home the American healthcare system was somebody did something Breaking Bad if we had socialized medicine. Yeah. And you see Walter White go, I have lung cancer, and they're like, oh, we'll see you right away. End of show.
Right, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that one too. That's a good one. All right, so let's jump right in. Ian is staying up late with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. So you guys may have heard George Galloway was running for office again over across the pond. Here's George Galloway a few weeks ago on the campaign trail, pretty much summarizing the thrust of his campaign. Here he is.
Hundreds of thousands of British people all over this country throughout the last 4.5 months have been demonstrating their revulsion at the slaughter in Gaza and the support for it from the British government, the British Labour opposition, and the vast majority of the British media. Hundreds of thousands have marched, but millions share their revulsion. So, if you've come here to shill for little Rishi Sunak or clunky Keir Starmer, you've come to the wrong place, you see, because both of these parties were comprehensively defeated here in Rochdale yesterday. We got more votes than Labour, Conservative, liberal, reform, put together.
All put together.
That's the nature of our victory. And people are going to have to come to terms with it, because I'm not the kind of man who's easily intimidated. I'm not intimidated by hostile journalists and broadcasters. I'm not intimidated by cameras being pointed in my face. I'm afraid only of God, you see. I'm afraid only of God.
And his wife.
And you will not trick me or force me into retreating from the platform on which I stood and for which I now have a mandate that I will take into the House of Commons on Monday. I'm not Jeremy Corbyn, you see. I don't turn the other cheek. If you slap me, I'll slap you back. That's my attitude.
All right. I misspoke slightly there. I just want to correct that. I said it was on the campaign trail. This is obviously after the vote happened. Let's just go to headline here. Rochdale by-election landslide win for George Galloway. There are the numbers right there, 39.7%. Not a technical majority, but with 6 people in the race, that's about as close to 50% as you can expect to come. Just obviously a rout. No one got anywhere near him, especially none of the 2 major parties. You see the Conservatives finishing a distant third at 12, and then Labor 7.7. Here he is on his victory night speech saying this.
All right. Hang on. Before we move on, I want to clarify a couple of things. Okay, so sometimes you'll have people here who will run as an independent who will just kind of slap a party affiliation on. Is the Workers' Party an organized party there, or is it a case like that where he adopted a label?
No. So George created the Workers' Party a couple of years ago, and it's growing, and it's growing. So as he, not in that particular video, in some of the other videos, he said that the plan is to field local candidates in other areas.
Okay.
As a real political party with George as the leader.
So this is his own party that he's creating.
Yeah. So really an independent in a true sense. Absolutely. Here he is on election night saying this is for Gaza.
Starmer, this is for Gaza. You have paid and you will pay a high price for the role that you have played in enabling, encouraging, and covering for the catastrophe presently going on in occupied Palestine in the Gaza Strip.
So, Ian Puddick, you are a friend of George's. You know him very well. You worked on this campaign a great deal. I'll put up the final count once again. You can see a landslide victory. Did you guys on the campaign see this coming? Did you expect to win by a landslide? Did you expect to win but tightly? Did you not expect to win? What was your feeling as the results came in? Were you shocked that this happened, or was it something you saw coming?
So there's a whole load of questions there. So George, obviously, as the Workers' Party, had a campaign team at a headquarters that arranged everything. Was I part of that? The answer is no, because I have a full-time job, 2 full-time jobs with my gin distillery and my plumbing company. I just went up there on a personal level, just to go and bang on doors and canvass and
you were a volunteer, right?
Absolutely. And I just think the reason I say that, because the people that were there from day one, putting all that hard work in, I wouldn't want to sort of say, yeah, I was doing all of that when I wasn't, and it would detract from them. I wouldn't be fair. So to answer the other questions, the issues that we talked about on the doors were all local issues. And they're the same issues, whether in London, Manchester, Scotland, or in Rochdale, local healthcare, policing, crime, roads. People have the same concerns. There's not some sort of magic bubble in Rochdale that differentiates from the rest of the country. Gaza obviously did come up, but was it the main issue on the doors? I don't think so. but it would depend from the areas that you're in, if that makes sense. So if you're in a very Asian area, the Gaza issue would definitely come up. If you were in a white working class area, it would come up significantly less.
Right, because one of the many smears that the media has tried to put on him before the vote and since is that he ran on Gaza at the expense of running on domestic and local issues. And he said, A, that's not true, and B, as he's made the point several times, I believe he may have made this point today on his stream, I caught some of it, no one's free unless everyone's free. And so don't tell us we don't have a stake in what's going on in Gaza right now, because of course the whole world does.
Absolutely. But just imagine, just to go back to what you said, imagine that he only campaigned on Gaza and not local issues. He won.
Right.
He won.
Right.
You know, he won. So even if he just didn't talk, I mean, he did, obviously, but I'm just saying if he didn't, if he was just Gaza, he won. And he won massively. So the point is, they'll do anything to smear him. Absolutely anything to smear him.
Well, it's something.
I mean, he's not a man you can bribe. He's not in the pockets of big business. There's no donors that are going to chuck loads of money at him. It's just not going to happen.
Well, it's interesting watching him speak because, and I don't say this as an insult, there are certain elements that are evocative of the secret of Trump's success, as I've always seen it. You look at Bernie Sanders, and he always crawled away like a mouse when the media would come at him. He gets an endorsement from Joe Rogan, the most popular podcaster in the world, and they call him a racist and a homophobe. He goes, no, I don't want the endorsement. I don't want the endorsement. And what Trump understood from day one was that people hate this establishment so much that there's no upside in trying to cooperate with them or bend the knee to them. And there's only upside in defying them, to the point that, unlike Galloway, I like what he's standing for. Trump, when he said about John McCain, I prefer people who didn't get captured, everyone thought that was the end of him. Yeah. But just because he didn't bow to them, it made him more popular, in spite of the fact that it was a pretty repugnant thing to say.
Of course.
Just the defiance itself. So seeing him go up there and say, honestly, as an American, seeing anybody with a leftist perspective, and honestly, the nicknaming is reminding me of Trump too.
Well, yeah,
because I noticed
Sunak,
in the other clip he calls him Little Rishi
Sunak. Yeah, it's great.
But hey, that's being good at politics. That's why Trump won. I mean, that's the essence of it, I think. And on the left here in America, we have nothing comparable to that. We have nothing comparable to a leftist with balls. Exactly. Nothing like that.
No, that's true. No, I mean, sit down and have a cup of tea with George. He's warm. He's friendly. He's very funny. He's really funny. He's so clever. I hate him. He's really clever. And he knows how to connect with people. He's got charm, bags and bags of charm. And he stands up for the small man. I mean, it's just like a perfect storm. It's just a perfect storm. But obviously that narrative doesn't fit in with what the big guys want, if that makes sense.
Well, it also seems like you just have a very different electorate. And I would tie this even to, I went to see An Enemy of the People, and we did a little segment on it. How, wow, in America, I just don't think they would do An Enemy of the People as a critique of the liberal class. Not at a Broadway level, because the liberals are the ones controlling what gets on the stage. We often lament, it doesn't matter who you run. The Democratic voters are too stupid. They're too stupid. You can't break through. They're garbage. You can't work with these people. But not only did you have people who would vote for George Galloway with the entire media, as far as we can see from here, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the media is uniform in attacking him. Same thing we have here with anybody who's like, anywhere to the left of Francisco Franco. They go after him.
Excuse me.
You're dealing with the same thing there, but the voters, it's inconceivable for us in America to have an independent candidate blow the Democrats and the Republican equivalent out of the water like that.
Well, because there's too many people who are brainwashed by the Democratic Party. So, and this is a question for you, Ian, because you would know this much better than either of us would. You see Labor just in the toilet there, 7.7%.
Yep. Right.
Is it correct to assume that Galloway ate their lunch, that he took a lot of votes from them, or was there another crop of voters that he tapped into?
No, it's absolutely. So traditionally,
okay, so even the
Labour
British shit libs are not as brainwashed as our shit libs, is what you're saying, because they're willing to, at the end of the day, vote for an outside candidate.
Well, I'll tell you what's really interesting. Two things. I don't want to digress too much. Right. So when I went up to campaign for George Galloway, I went online and I looked at all of the opposition, and I looked at all of their social media to see what they were saying. So there were various independents, and they were great. They were putting stuff on social media about local issues. I'm here. There's an issue. This is what I propose. Great. Right. Labour, Conservative, and the Lib Dems, and I've just forgotten them. Simon Danzig's. I've forgotten the party. It's gone. Reform. Reform. If you go on their social media, they are campaigning to stop Galloway. I mean, it's insane.
Right.
So if I was selling you my pen, I've owned this pen company, and I was putting stuff on it, I'd be selling the benefits and all of this kind of stuff about why my pen is so good and who uses it and why they use it, all that kind of stuff. None of them were doing that. They were just saying, we've got to stop Galloway. I mean, Simon Danzig, they hired a bus, an open top bus, and they're on the top with loud hailers going, we need to stop George Galloway. We need to stop. I mean, it's insane. It's insane.
But it didn't work on your voters.
No.
That's what's amazing for us.
But how can they get it so wrong? I mean, I run a plumbing company and a gin distillery. I'm not a marketing man, but I know that's not what you do. If I wanted to try and get you guys to perhaps use my pen or pencil or whatever it is, saying don't use so-and-so's pen or so-and-so's pen is not where I would start. But it's insane.
If you were a marketer, you would name them both bathtub gin. That's
no
name
comment.
for a plumber and a distiller. Bathtub gin, same name for both companies.
I tell you what's really interesting as well. So if you go on Sky News or any of the BBC and look at any of the clips on YouTube for George Galloway, you have the clip of George Galloway giving them that, which is fantastic. And then look at the comments. They're all pro George Galloway. Not that they are pro. These are people saying, I don't like George. I wouldn't vote for George, but good on George for doing this. Good on George for doing that. So these are people that are not naturally affiliated or warm to him, saying how well he's done, and they like what he's doing.
All right, well, let's go. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but it just shows you the real disconnect from the establishment and George, who, is a street fighter.
See what we have here, I think, is the majority of the population that would align naturally with kind of more progressive, eat the rich kind of politics. They've been so demoralized and overworked, they've given up on politics. And maybe that's because you're able to get on the phone and go see a doctor. And our people are too overworked, too stressed out to really get involved in politics. So the only people you get involved are people with the comfort and privilege to actually get involved in it. And those are the ones that the media messages are really speaking to.
Well, let's go to the establishments. The establishment of Britain was not happy with George Galloway's re-election to the parliament. Let's start at the top with little Rishi Sunak. Little Rishi Sunak had some bad things to say about George Galloway's victory. Let's take a look.
Disruption and criminality. In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality. What started as protests on our streets has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence. Jewish children fearful to wear their school uniform lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with. Now our democracy itself is a target. Council meetings and local events have been stormed. MPs do not feel safe in their homes. Long-standing parliamentary conventions have been upended because of safety concerns. And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah, and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP. I need to speak to you all this evening because this situation has gone on long enough and demands a response not just from government, but from all of us.
All right, let's see what George Galloway had to say about that in the now viral interview with Sky News.
People have just watched what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said. Well, he says that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. He is implying you are a divisive figure. You have run an election campaign that has tried to appeal, particularly, not entirely, to one section of the community.
Who won the election? Me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the Democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people like you and the people that have supported you.
I have just
and they have pointed out that you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not be the winner.
That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Why are there people on the streets worried?
There may be people who didn't vote for me who are worried, but the majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening slogans.
We had this conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister.
You see what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass?
I saw Ian getting excited all over again.
I don't know how many times I've seen that, but it's brilliant.
It's No, just amazing. And that's what you said in the last segment. You know, he doesn't turn the other cheek. He hits back when people hit him.
No, that is just amazing as an American, because they use the same exact tactics on what we have that pass for progressives here, which is not saying much. But even somebody like Bernie Sanders, who would be a very conventional centrist politician in England, even someone like that, the constant framing was always, AOC pulls this number when she gets protested by her friend Jose Vega. There are people who are scared. They always make it a safety issue. And meanwhile, he won the majority. And it's being framed as if, there are these masses of people who are terrified. Terrified of what? He won the majority.
Overwhelmingly.
Overwhelmingly buried the Conservative and Labor Party. So what are you talking about? Like, he's framing it as if this is some kind of anti-democratic uprising when the guy overwhelmingly won the election. What are you talking about?
The mainstream media is saying it's a threat to democracy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Democracy is a threat to democracy.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And Rishi Sunak was not done. I just wanted to play that initial statement and response. But here's later on in Rishi Sunak's speech, really going full fascist, really just threatening to punish people for speech. Now, this is what Russell talks about here, is that, much to the chagrin of the modern Democratic Party, we do have a codified First Amendment here in America, which is why most of even the most unhinged Democrats don't sound quite this unhinged when threatening to crack down on free speech. Not to say they wouldn't if they could. Trust me, if Neera Tanden were at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, there'd be no First Amendment, okay? So I'm not letting them off the hook, but I'm saying this is what happens when you don't have something like that in writing. This is the kind of speech you get. Let's go back to little Rishi Sunak.
We must be prepared to stand up for our shared values in all circumstances, no matter how difficult. And I respect that the police have a tough job in policing the protests we have seen, and that they are operationally independent. But we must draw a line. Yes, you can march and protest with passion. You can demand the protection of civilian life. But no, you cannot call for violent jihad. There is no context in which it can be acceptable to beam anti-Semitic tropes onto Big Ben in the middle of a vote on Israel-Gaza.
Okay, stop right there. We just have to stop right there because Russell was actually in London covering the Day X hearings and went to the protest that little Rishi Sunak is talking about. So let's go to the video here and let's see what tropes were projected onto Big Ben. He says you can't project tropes onto Big Ben. There's going to be consequences. The cops are going to crack down on you if you do that. So let's take a look at the tropes that were on Big Ben. This is Russell's own footage. Stop bombing Gaza. Ceasefire now. Shocking. Stop bombing Gaza. See, so then it starts again. So you see, we didn't selectively edit around the quote-unquote tropes. That's what was projected onto Big Ben. Stop bombing Gaza, ceasefire now. So if those are anti-Semitic tropes, I say as a Jewish man, we really need to call a meeting. If stop bombing people is now an anti-Semitic trope, I think us Jews need to really call a meeting and get our messaging straight, because those are not tropes. Those are not tropes. Those are statements for peace, and they're not defacing Big Ben. It's a hologram projection. Activists did that at Yankee Stadium here in New York. They didn't graffiti Yankee Stadium. You can't do that. No. They projected an image. The stadium was fine, just like Big Ben was fine. And the only messages put on there were ceasefire now, stop bombing Gaza. Okay, let's go back to the end of this. We just wanted to debunk that.
There can be no cause that you can use to justify the support of a prescribed terrorist group like Hamas. And yes, you can freely criticize the actions of this government, or indeed any government. That is a fundamental democratic right. But no, you cannot use that as an excuse to call for the eradication of a state or any kind of hatred or anti-Semitism. This week, I've met with senior police officers and made clear it is the public's expectation that they will not merely manage these protests, but police them. And I say this to the police: we will back you when you take action. But if we are asking more of the police, we in government must also back up that call with action. To that end, this month the government will implement a new, robust framework for how it deals with this issue, to ensure that we are dealing with the root causes of this problem, and that no extremist organizations or individuals are being lent legitimacy by their actions and interactions with central government. You cannot be part of our civic life if your agenda is to tear it down. We will redouble our support for the PREVENT program to stop young minds being poisoned by extremism.
So I just want to pause it. You cannot be part of our civic life if we perceive your agenda, meaning your political points of view, as subversive. And now he goes into a few examples of what they're going to do to crack down on you.
There's no room for dissent.
Right, exactly. Almost done.
We will redouble our support for the PREVENT program to stop young minds being poisoned by extremism. We will demand that universities stop extremist activity on campus. We will also act to prevent people entering this country whose aim is to undermine its values. The Home Secretary has instructed that if those here on visas choose to spew hate or protest or seek to intimidate people, we will remove their right to be here. And our Britain must not be a country in which we descend into polarized camps, with some communities living parallel lives. It is not enough to live side by side. We must live together, united by shared values and a shared commitment to this country.
I thought a free society was you live side by side even if your values differ.
Even if you have different values.
Even if you have different values, living side by side, that's what
there's only one value.
Democracy. Right.
And
exactly.
I just want to say his claim that people are calling for violence. If you go back to our Twitter feed, because I live streamed it, it was February 21st. Go watch it. I walked through that whole protest outside the House of Parliament. You show me somebody threatening violent jihad.
I tell you what they do.
Show me where you see that in the footage.
I tell you what they do. It's about context. So there'll be young guys there draped with Palestinian flags, screaming, absolutely screaming. Right. Women and children are babies are being blown apart, torn apart, shot, killed, burnt, and they're passionate. They're not going, we need to kill people, we need to do that. But they are passionate. And because they're angry, that is misconstrued as violence. And it's not. It's not. I haven't seen any violence. I haven't seen anyone calling for violence.
But how terrified should your fellow countrymen be? I mean, even not your fellow countrymen. If you're here on a work visa and we perceive you to have views that are not consistent with what I, Rishi Sunak, believe are the values that hold our society together. You see how vague this is? You see how easy it is for them to just deem you out of bounds and not only take you out of civic life, which is bad enough. I mean, that's horrible in and of itself. They'll kick you out of the fucking country. They'll kick you out of the country if you're there on a visa and you don't say the right things or profess the right quote unquote values.
That speech was dystopian and terrifying. And it's really interesting to watch this because I think it's partly because you do have some history of a kind of under the surface white nationalist movement. You know, you had what was his name before World War II? Patton. You know what I mean? Oswald.
Yeah, with the black shirts. There's been various.
Yeah. So you
Patton
see
Oswald,
things like
that's it. That's
Patton Oswald. I thought that was the right name, but I was like, hang on,
I'm
is that
kidding.
a comedian?
That's a comedian. Yes. Yes.
No. What is the guy's Oswald Mosley? Oswald Mosley. That's his name. See, you fucked me up, man. That's
and
it.
he had a famous son.
That's it. Now we're gonna have to cut around this. You happy now? You happy now?
Cut around it. Yeah, I was just joking.
So I think because of that, when you see and because of the lack of a First Amendment, you know, when I talked to my daughter who was raised in England about this, she said, "Yeah, there's never been freedom of speech in England. There is no freedom of not really. There's no bedrock freedom of speech." So you get these visions like V for Vendetta that are a conservative manifestation of those strains where you'd have this conservative dystopia would take over England, children of men, you know, that kind of thing. And you watch this and it's actually much more, this is a dystopia arisen from neoliberalism. And it's a really terrifying vision where you're just going to create a fascist, repressive state around this sloganeering about equality and diversity. Meanwhile, you're actually creating the police state that had always been presented as being a conservative danger.
Of course. So when Sunak came out and stood outside Number 10, the bastion of modern democracy, Number 10, respected throughout the world, as you know, all the rest of it. He stood there and he gave his speech about British values and our values and all that BS, because it's all hypocritical. I know when I saw that, when I first saw that, when it happened, I remember thinking, so you're talking about British values. I know that he personally sanctioned the Ministry of Defense to send US cluster bombs over to Ukraine. Now, the only reason I know that is because I know the guys at the Ministry of Defense that physically facilitated the delivery of them. It's not someone said something I read online. I know the people involved personally. So all of this, you know,
how do you know
the law.
They
broke.
Drink your gin one night, they get liquored up with you, and
I couldn't possibly comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, have another glass of wine.
They smuggle the arms in your gin deliveries.
It's a big flower speaking to the but yeah, so you know, the hypocrisy knows no limits, really, is what I was trying to make. It knows no limits.
It's amazing. I mean, that is a truly terrifying speech.
I mean, do you worry being there? Because it was one of the first clips we showed was me interviewing some British people when I went over there about the speech issue. And I think some people thought I was exaggerating. So what are your thoughts about that? Do you worry about speech? I mean, we won't get into details, but before we came on, there's certain things you told us we can't talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of an answer right there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but they're for legal reasons.
Right.
They're for legal reasons. Right. And in the same way, if you were involved in those things, I wouldn't go out and say things that would jeopardize what you were doing. So that's, so that's not really a free speech issue, if that makes sense. Right. That would just be protecting George, for example.
Right.
In the way that I would protect you or anybody else. But yeah, no, I'm the last person to have been arrested, and I'm a big guy. I'm not violent. I don't stand there ranting and effing and swearing. I just don't. It's not in my nature. I couldn't do that if I tried. As you know, I was raised as Jehovah's Witness. But I was the last person to be arrested at Speaker's Corner, and this would have been. So this would have been.
You were the last person arrested. They still do it, don't they? They still.
Yeah, but I was the last person to be arrested there.
Okay.
So free speech. It's an enclave. It's been there for a long time. You can go there. You can say anything you want. Pretty much. I mean, all free speech is governed by law. Right. So you can't incite violence. I can't go there and go we need to beat up so and so.
Sure.
I'll be arrested. So that's not free speech. So all free.
Well, we have that here. I mean, you can't incite violence against an individual, but you wouldn't see anyone come up here. I mean, maybe Trump would do it, but there'd be no enforcement mechanism by which he could actually prosecute someone for, say, espousing values contrary to Donald Trump. Like, you couldn't actually threaten someone with, like, police action for that the way Sunak just did there.
So
and what are the implications of that for someone like you, who's a political activist?
Well, so I'll give you a real example. 2010, I'm at Speaker's Corner. I've got a big crowd there. They're all listening to what I've got. They've got listen. They're all sad. They've all got too much time on their hands. They're all listening to me, and there's undercover counter-terrorist police officers in the crowd. Now I know who they are because of the questions that they ask me. So I've been going there for a year. So I'm dealing with the public and passers-by, and you get a feel for what's coming. And these officers would always ask specific questions that were really specific, that I knew that if I'd answered them in a certain way, I'd get in trouble. So I didn't. So I deliberately didn't. Now, on that particular occasion when I was arrested, I wasn't charged, by the way. They just carted me off, arrested me, stuck me in the cells, gave me cups of tea, and then let me out. I wasn't charged. But on that occasion, there was a right-wing a right-wing group that were demonstrating 50 to 60 meters away from where I was standing. And there was some right-wing guys and some Asians, and they all had a fight, and they were physically fighting. And the police all piled in, separated them, stopped the fighting, didn't arrest anybody. And they were physically punching each other. I'm standing there very peacefully handing out leaflets, talking to people, and I get carted away.
Wow.
There's your scenario.
Wow.
There's your scenario.
That's amazing. All right, we got one more segment we're going to do with Ian. Then we're going to take some super chats. I know we got super chats and Rumble Rants coming in. Round of applause for Jake in the booth, Field and Rumble Rants. It is almost 1 a.m. in England, so I want to get through our segments with Ian. I don't want to make him sit here watch us read super chats. So we're going to do one more here, and then we will let you go, my friend. Thanks so much for being here. So we've talked about George Galloway, but I thought we should bring attention to Ian. This is yet another one of your friends here. Starmer challenger calls for new left mass movement outside the Labor Party. This is a profile on Andrew Feinstein by the Squawk Box. Andrew Feinstein, former ANC MP under Nelson Mandela and leading critic of the global arms trade, will use a speech this weekend, this was a few days ago, to endorse a new political alliance billed as the foundation of the first organized mass movement of the left outside of the Labor Party. Feinstein's speech will be the centerpiece of a conference called by dozens of former Labor councillors and other independent candidates. The event will take place in Labor leader Keir Starmer's home constituency of Holborn and St. Pancras, I hope I said that right, Ian, in London. Beautiful. Feinstein, who has lived in the constituency for more than 2 decades since moving to the UK, has already signaled, bless you, his willingness to stand against Starmer as an independent candidate and has been selected as candidate by the OCISA anti-Starmer group, attracting a groundswell of support both locally and nationally. Local campaigners say there is real vulnerability in Starmer's majority established under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the party, especially given the controversies embroiling Labour over the war in Gaza. Starmer looks even more vulnerable after yesterday's landslide victory for Workers' Party GB leader George Galloway in Rochdale and the collapse of Labor's vote from over 50% to less than 8%, with Starmer's support for Israel's genocide in Gaza a major driver. The new movement, dubbed Collective, has been established following months of deliberation amongst grassroots campaign groups and prospective independent candidates for both council and parliamentary elections. Though it is not establishing a new party in time to contest this year's election, it intends to do so once it has grown a mass membership base. Feinstein said, "It's not just Labor Party members who are the victims of Starmer's entirely fictitious campaign for leadership of the party. The people of Holborn and St. Pancras also elected him twice on a socialist platform under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn. Having lived in the constituency for over 20 years, I've been overwhelmed by the support and strength of feeling amongst local communities and across the country who are crying out for a response to the deeply corrupt, anti-democratic, and out-of-touch Labor Party under Starmer. Under his leadership, the party has now completely abandoned working people and marginalized communities in an escalating effort to out-Tory the Tories." Where does that critique sound familiar? Everybody here in America, have we said the same thing about the Democratic Party in recent years? Sounds awfully similar. But this election must do more than just provide an alternative to the pro-genocide, pro-austerity Sunak-Starmer circus. It must also mark the beginnings of a new mass movement of working people that can challenge the Westminster bubble once and for all. That's why I'm proud to be joining Collective, which is uniting sections of the left and will eventually transform into a new political party backed by an organized and democratic movement. Here's a little more of what Andrew Feinstein is about. Here's Andrew speaking to an interviewer at a Free Gaza protest. This is great stuff here. Let's take a look.
Hello, who are you and why are you here?
So my name is Andrew Feinstein. I'm a former ANC Member of Parliament from South Africa. I now live in the UK, where I investigate and research the global arms trade and militarism and its impacts on the world. I'm here because, as my former boss Nelson Mandela said, Palestine is the moral issue of our time. And the reality is that Britain is not just complicit in the genocide taking place in Gaza because our government and even our opposition refuse to call for a ceasefire. We are complicit because we are selling Israel the weapons that are being used to slaughter Palestinians. Now, why do I, as a Jew, as the son of a Holocaust survivor, as someone who has lectured on genocide prevention at Auschwitz, where dozens of my mother's family were murdered, why am I so critical of Israel and what is happening in Palestine? Because as Nelson Mandela and my friend and political mentor, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, said repeatedly, Israel is an apartheid state. And if anybody knows what an apartheid state is, it is Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. In fact, they said, Israel's apartheid is more brutal and more devastating than South Africa's was. And the reason for that is very simple. South Africa needed the cheap black labor force to run our economy. Israel doesn't need Palestinians as a workforce, and that is why they're slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent civilians, claiming it to be in the interests of self-defense. It is no such thing. So please, please, never forget what Nelson Mandela said. Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinian people.
He seems cool.
He's fantastic.
Ian, what do you know about Andrew Feinstein and this new movement he's trying to build?
Yeah, he's fantastic. So, I mean, Labour, as its name implies, set up to represent working people. It no longer does that. There's a cigarette paper. I mean, George Galloway says that Labour and the Conservatives are both chiefs of the same backside. Or arse, sometimes he says. There's a cigarette paper between them in terms of policy and stuff. on all the important stuff, supplying weapons to kill women and children. They're absolutely for it. So, he wants to represent real people. He's that kind of person. And obviously people are asking him because he is a leader. He's a natural leader. He's a very nice man. And if you follow him on social media, his posts are always very moderate, sensible. And you can see by the way that he articulated the message there, on message, just on point.
All
no
right,
shouting or screaming.
All right, so 2 questions. Okay, so particularly looking at Galloway's victory, which again, the 2 parties have such a lock on elections here. That kind of a result from an independent is just absolutely inconceivable in the United States.
Correct.
The whole thing is just rigged. However, when you look at what he's saying, he's almost painting a picture of a 2-party duopoly similar to what we have here. So why does he feel that way?
Because that's how it is. There isn't really any representation for working people. You just have to choose one of the 2 parties and hope they do something for you. But in reality, that's just not going to happen.
But it seems like you have more space to challenge that, certainly, than we do here.
Okay, well, I'm not sure how it works there, but here, I mean,
here you have no chance.
George
Here
Galloway would
Jill
be
Stein
impossible.
and Cornel West sharing 2% of the vote. I mean, that's what we got here.
Right.
Yeah.
Would Jimmy Dore stand?
What's that?
Would Jimmy Dore stand?
Would he stand where?
Well, would he create a party, the People's Party?
I mean, I as a friend of Jimmy's, I wouldn't wish that on him, but he doesn't have any interest.
Look, RFK, who's part of a tradition of American royalty as an independent, is polling at 8%, right? So it's like here, there's no oxygen at all. Now, I take your point. I mean, it's this part of why Galloway's victory was as shocking as it was is because it's unlikely, right? It doesn't happen that often. So maybe that's what you're getting at. But to Russell's point, there does seem to be more space there than there is here because here that could literally, I mean, that could never happen. I mean, Jesse Ventura winning the governor of Minnesota, that's like once every 30 years that happens here. Right.
Yeah. No. So not really understanding how it works in the States, but taking on board what you said. Yeah, no, there are opportunities. And as George said, that they will field more people in various areas as the opportunities come up. What George needs to do, because his time as an MP now is only very short, because there's going to be the only reason they had a by-election there was because the current MP passed away, so they called it a
so
local.
It's like what we call a special election.
Yes, they called a local election, and then there's going to be a general election later this year at some point. So he's going to be an MP and stand until that point. So he really, really needs to sort of, which he will. He'll roll up his sleeves and he'll do as much as he can to influence the local electorate to say, look, in the short period of time that I've been here, this is what we're doing for you as a party. These are the changes we're making, so that he gets re-elected at the next election.
Okay, so now why is he starting another party when George Galloway has started a party?
Well,
like why don't they just work together?
Well, that's people personalities, people politics, I guess. I don't know the answer to that, but I suggest what I said because they're all on the left. But
right, exactly.
But where they are on the left will be slightly different, I would assume.
Interesting.
But on the core, on the important issues, the really important issues, they will all be on the same things. They will all be on Mark, I have no doubt. But then it's just people, isn't it?
Interesting. So on that note, I actually have one more question for you from the audience. This is a Rumble rant, which I luckily caught that this was directed to you, Ian, and I think it's an interesting question. From Roy the Goy. Ian, I'm an independent conservative. I have more in common with independent left-wingers like Keaton and Russell than anyone in the GOP. Is the line between left and right also blurring in the UK?
Yeah, as I said, there's a cigarette paper between them, the left and the right. So the left is Labour. It's not left. It's not left.
Right, but I think what he's asking is there. I think what he's saying is, because we they call it here horseshoe theory, where people who are thought to be extreme left and people who are thought to be extreme right have similar critiques on certain issues. I think that's what he's getting at there.
Yeah, but that's true here.
It is true there.
That's true here. Yeah, that's true here. I think.
Awesome. All right. Well, Ian Puddick, it is past 1 a.m. over there. Thank you so much for staying up late with us.
No, it's a pleasure.
You were fantastic. We couldn't have done these segments without you. I mean, we could have faked it, but we'd have been faking it. So, yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm really delighted. Honestly, thank you so much.
Delighted to see you as always. Thank you. And one other thing I learned about England, they give you tea in jail. Even when they book you and throw you in jail, they give you tea in jail. We don't get tea in our jails here.
And copious amounts.
Wow.
They give you terrible coffee here.
No, the tea.
They'll give you cold coffee with like the creamer sitting on top.
Yeah. Ian Puddick, thank you so much, my friend. Great to see you again.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
You got it. Have a great night.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right. Round of applause for Ian. What a guest. That was great. That was great. How great is it to have a friend and volunteer for the George Galloway campaign on tonight? Beautiful job, Ian. Thank you very much. Let's go to some super chats here. Bloodthirsty Mayonnaise, thanks for the $9.99. Legal standards for issuing a stay, likelihood of success on the merits. SCOTUS will vote in favor of Trump, not absolute immunity, immunity for alleged official acts. It's in the question presented. Interesting. Anthony Levinson became a member. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony.
Appreciate that. Eric Husso, member for 6 months. What's this I hear about a Jimmy Dore plantation? Must be artisanal weed farm. Sign me up. Thank you, Eric. JM, thanks for the $2. Keaton the Chia Pet, hair all back. I told you the hair was going to come back. I told you guys it would come back. You just have to be a little patient. That's why I cut it as short as I did. What did I say? I know myself. Sparky, thanks for the $2. George Galloway destroyed your boy from Sky News. He did indeed. That was something else. That was really quite amazing. That's why that video went as viral as it did. BMK, thanks for the $5. You said you guys got a shout out by Peter Lavelle on RT's Crosstalk episode Magical Thinking on the 28th of February around the 13-minute and 20-second mark. Nice work. Thank you. Yes, our friend Misty let me know that because I think she was on that show.
Tell me that.
I couldn't find the episode, but now I will because she said she pre-recorded it, so it must be up now.
What was it about?
She was on, I guess, I'm assuming she was on talking about the Day X stuff, and I guess our coverage came up. But thank you, BMK. Appreciate that. Sweet intro tune, says Jason Murphy. Thank you very much. All right, folks, let's go to our patreon.com/Do Dissidents member scroll here. We want to thank our patrons for making our 4th show a week possible. So now we have quite a few more people in here than when we started. 2751 in the YouTube chat, 1,600 over in the Rumble chat. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button wherever you are. This week starts our first 4-show week. So we are doing a Rumble exclusive live stream with our great friend and great writer Anish Shivani on Wednesday at 2 p.m. That's going to be a great show. That is our first 4th stream. So that will be a Rumble exclusive. So make sure you head over to rumble.com.
Perfect timing. He finally launched a Substack.
Yes, he's got a Substack now. I finally convinced him to launch a Substack, and so we're going to be reading some of his more recent writings, which are phenomenal. We'll get all into that on Wednesday, and we'll be doing some other segments as well. But you guys made this happen by going to patreon.com/Do Dissidents, dodissidents.substack.com, and dodissidents.locals.com. Like I said, 1,600 of you guys over on Rumble. You can join our locals and become a supporter right now by clicking that join button underneath the screen. And by doing so, you get your name up in lights here on the show. You also get access, call-in access to our post-show Q&As, which are on Rumble. One of those is coming up later this evening. And you get access to 2 patron-exclusive live streams per month. So the perks are the same, Substack, Locals, and Patreon. We really rely on support from our members. You guys are the backbone of the show. And so if you would like to support the show, you can go there and do that. We are also running a special promotion while supplies last of Russell's NOLA souvenirs, which we'll throw up on the screen as soon as our Patreon scroll ends. So we'll get to that in just a second. But I'll take one more super chat here. Oh, look at that.
I didn't use up the battery.
Nice.
This can be yours if you sign up today.
Absolutely. Yeah, look at that. Imagine Anthony the Blink, Vicky a.k.a. Noodleman Kagan, Jackie the Sullivan in front Nuremberg trial. Rough going for them. Financial military plans. Precedent neocon military plan 2 genocide millions. Wow, you really got your character limit money was worth there. Took a long time to get all that in, but thank you, Stephen. All right, now that our scroll is done, let's see where we stand with our inventory. So, like I said, Russell was in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. We created a little patron giveaway for those who signed up. This is what we have left. If you signed up recently after February 15th to the $15 a month or $30 a month level, message us through Patreon your mailing address if you did not fill it out when you signed up, because we need to know where to send your stuff. But this is what we got left. So there is still some souvenirs available for new patron signups.
Well, this is at the $15 level. The $5 beads, gone. They got all those. So this is the $15 stuff. So these things will be going out along with some of the special swag that I caught off the floats. Every single thing being sent out was not bought in a store. It was all caught off a parade float.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so, like I said, we've had some $15 and $30 signups. Your stuff is accounted for, and then this is what we got left for those who sign up.
We got decks of cards. We got custom-made cups that they have only for that year's parade, never to come again. Some specialized beads and some other stuff in there.
All right,
you took it down, so I can't see.
The Mardi Gras sweepstakes is still going on. We have some supplies left. So we are not sold out past the $5 tier. $5 tier, you're sold out. So you could still sign up and support us for $5. You still get all the other perks I mentioned. You just unfortunately are too late to get some of Russell's sweaty garbage from Mardi Gras.
You're not gonna be able to lick the tequila off of my Mardi Gras beads.
Exactly. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Rishi Sunak was groomed to be an empty-headed puppet. His school, literally in the literal sense of the word, offered no history courses, ensuring no references, leaving little Rishi's brain hobbled. It's funny. Thank you, Sparky. You caught that, Russell, just as I did. The nicknaming. Little Rishi Sunak and Clunky Keir Starmer. It's a good nickname, too, because when you look at Keir Starmer, that is a word that comes to mind. He is a clunky guy, for sure. Comprador, says JD Soul 3002, is an underused term in our discourse. Thank you, JD Soul. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go to some more segments here this evening. We've got plenty more show to do. Folks, this broke just about an hour and a half before we went live, and people are making a big deal about this because Kamala Harris at a campaign event said that we need to broker an immediate ceasefire for 6 weeks, and this is the talk of Twitter right now. For what reason? I'm not sure. We're going to get to this in a second, but let's just first hear what she has to say.
The immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table.
Wow, look, they're really excited.
This will get the hostages out.
Finally, we can vote blue without having to book an extra appointment with our psychiatrist that week. Finally.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Woohoo! But 6 weeks, yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Get a significant amount of aid in. This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure, and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination. Hamas claims it wants a ceasefire. Well, there is a deal on the table. And as we have said, Hamas needs to agree to that deal. Let's get a ceasefire. Let's reunite the hostages with their families.
They really suck the energy out of the it's not a room, but suck the energy off of the bridge there. Yeah, of course, she is referring to the same framework that Netanyahu had already basically said was a non-starter. But Netanyahu on Face the Nation last week, because we already covered this, we covered last time, right? You guys all know Joe Biden was eating the ice cream. Yeah, we hope to have a ceasefire by Monday. Okay, Benjamin Netanyahu said on Face the Nation, hey, if they make us do a ceasefire for 6 weeks, we will invade Rafah after the 6 weeks. If not, we'll invade Rafah before the 6 weeks. So basically nothing has changed here. There was a lot of talk about this online, understandably, because when you see the headline, Kamala Harris calls for immediate ceasefire, you think that's news. It's not news. Netanyahu said he's going to invade Rafah before or after the 6 week pause. Now, if you use those 6 weeks to broker a more permanent ceasefire, that would be something. But of course, they're not going to do that. And you can kind of tell by what she says there, that has no chance at happening. So I just wanted to address that, since that there was a lot of noise about that before we came on. But there's really no news value there. The only news there is that she feels a need to rhetorically, at least, use the word ceasefire to get them clapping for a minute, because you could tell they really wanted to hear that from her for a long time. And then she said, we need a ceasefire, woohoo! And then she's like, yeah. And then the more she explained, the more they understood, oh, wait a minute. She's just reiterating the same goal that Biden did with the ice cream earlier this week. That's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, there's nothing going on there other than we're losing Michigan and we're getting desperate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all that's happening.
Right. There. That's a response to the 100,000 voting uncommitted.
That's it. You could end this tomorrow. Cut off all funding to Israel. That's it.
Exactly.
Done.
Yep, exactly. So, all right, just wanted to clear that up because I knew some people would be thinking about that. Mashed potatoes. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary used anti-Bernie bias in the media. And did they? Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I think that's a conspiracy theory.
Whatever they did to Seth Rich was safe and effective.
Yeah, they treated him very safely and effectively, I'll have you know. This is how Trump won, because half of the Democrats voted for him instead. It's just that simple. I'm surprised YouTube even lets you type that shit. I'm surprised you don't have to do like I don't know, what would you put there? He doesn't have any A's in his name, so you can't use the @ symbol instead of that, right? Or use the S. So you could do $sign Eth Rich. There you go. I'm surprised they didn't make you do that. But thank you, Sparky. Thanks for the $2 correction, Little Rishi. I got you, Sparky. Don't worry. No offense taken that you misspelled Rishi Sunak's name the first time. You put an E on the end. That's okay. It's okay with me. The UK still uses paper ballots and has an incorruptible election service. That's interesting. That could be part of why.
That's interesting.
It's a little easier for the third parties to win. Not that our vote counting isn't also safe and effective. We know that too. Did you hear DD mentioned on George Galloway today? Yes, a caller did bring us up. As part of a list of podcasts that have been giving him props for his victory. So yes, nice to be mentioned. Yeah, somebody tweeted that at us, and I gave it a listen. So thank you, Kinky. Appreciate that. Sparky, denazify Israel, go Yemen, fight the power. See, yeah, Sparky gives the Euro sign for the Yemen. I'm surprised they didn't make you do that with the Seth Rich. Interesting. Maybe this is more of a free speech zone than we thought. You know,
they're starting to get nervous about Rumble.
Yeah, right. We had them all wrong. All right. His Highness. Sorry, I almost misread that. Guys, I need feedback on my strat. It'll be either Biden or Trump, so we're boned either way. I like that. We're boned. I'm going to start using that. We're boned. Trump is way funnier, so I may as well embrace him so we can have a laugh while we go down the crapper. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Why not? I don't think you're wrong about that.
Cat was named Vagina.
Exactly. Boom. Sold. Done.
Although.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
It's
not a tough call.
Not as good. No, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but no, Cat is named Vagina. That beats that, I think.
Probably.
Yeah. That's pretty easy, I believe.
Well, it's the difference between laughing with someone and laughing at them.
Yes, that's true. SB, unfortunate news, Buck Angel is repeating Israeli propaganda.
Oh, no,
He
really?
repeated the debunked SA claims and that Palestinians were offered peace deals. He liked comments saying that on his YouTube. Interesting.
He's got that Jewish fiance, right?
Yeah, but he told me that he argued with his mother-in-law because he was critical of Israel. I don't know. We got to look into that. Thanks for the heads up. Stephen Hayes.
That's got to be a lot of pressure if you're engaged to a Jewish woman. If they if they are in any way Zionist inclined.
Well, that's what I said. I said if you thought becoming a man was hard, you ain't seen nothing yet. You try converting into that family. That's no joke. Stephen Hayes, thanks for the $10. Credit to Mike HW Rishi on a box. Reply, Rishi in a box with male member in a hole is much more fun at parties. Thank you. Great to see Ian, says Sparky. Put him in the regular rotation. Yeah, no, Ian's a great guest. Love Ian. Absolutely.
You know,
and what Russell was saying, sorry, I think you're about to say it now.
Yeah, one of the things that's been great over the history of the show is we have found people from within. You know, you have Tusker who comes on. Our theme song that everybody loves was written by a viewer. So, yeah, now we've got an England correspondent who, just because some asshole didn't have Wi-Fi. Now, now we have a listener who we can consult because, as Keaton said, we're not experts on England. And it's a very closely related political environment there to ours. Like we should cover more of that. We have a lot of people from that part of the world who watch the show. So it's just great to have somebody who, was a viewer who wound up being a correspondent now.
Absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. Christos, thanks for the $3 super sticker. Appreciate that. Pamela, thanks for the $2. And Lars and Rune, thanks for the $3. We got a super chat from Jimmy Dore here next. This show is very boring. So, hey, as you can see, Jimmy, doing pretty well on the super chats this evening. We're going to have a nice fat envelope for you after tonight. Everybody knows we don't keep this money. This goes right upstairs.
That's how fast it takes for a guy to get whacked.
Exactly. I think we're doing pretty good for you this evening, if I do say so myself.
Don't worry. We're gonna kick upstairs.
Right.
We're gonna do the right. Yeah. We're gonna do the right thing.
We're gonna do the right thing. We're gonna take care of you as always. We know better than to hold out. All right. Let's go on to. What is this? Segment number 5 already? All right, moving along tonight. All right, folks, here is a Morning Joe segment. Mika Brzezinski had the authors of a new book coming out called White Rural Rage. You can imagine what this must be about. White Rural Rage. This is what you have to watch out for this campaign season, folks, is those white rural voters are angrier than ever. They're more racist than ever, and they are getting ready to vote this year. And so all the libs are going to have this on their book list. Let's take a look what this book is about.
Is it that Trump appeals so much to a group he couldn't be more different from? Joining us now, Professor of Political Science at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, Tom Schaller, and journalist and opinion writer Paul Waldman. Their new book, out tomorrow, is entitled White Rural Rage, the threat to American
God
democracy.
damn it. I'm so sick of these white people.
Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this, so we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of negative factors about this demographic. Tom, what else do they have in common?
I think that what really matters at
what
this
makes
point
them
in time.
Vulnerable?
Oh, well, a lot of that has to do with, as a starting point, the problems that rural America has, which are very real and very profound.
Oh, interesting.
They have more problematic education systems. They have poor infrastructure. They've had a lack of economic opportunity. We've seen a lot of manufacturing jobs leave from rural areas. And that kind of left them open to someone like Donald Trump, who would come along and tell them something that was true, that there is a system that has not served them well. And he said...
They're pissed off.
They are pissed off, and they have some reason to be.
Kind of undercutting the premise of your book there for a second, but watch where they go back to. So it's amazing. So he starts out saying, yeah, they're the most racist, the most xenophobic, the most anti-gay, the most, what do you say, conspiratorial. Then he says, on the other hand...
They have no rhythm.
Right. They have no rhythm. Right. Exactly. They go on the 1 and the 3. Right. They do the clap on the 1 and the 3.
They think deviled eggs is cuisine.
Yeah, exactly. But then he goes and he says, on the other hand, they do have some legitimate grievances. But watch how he goes back to saying, but actually, those legitimate grievances that they have don't govern their actions or their voting preferences, because here's why.
With both parties, the trouble is that what Donald Trump gave them was not something that was actually going to fix those problems, but was just a kind of a way to channel their rage and anger. And, we've been told for so long, especially Democrats have been told, that in order to get rural voters, to get them to listen to you, you have to go there, you have to really empathize with them, you have to show them that you understand their lives, you have to, put on a Carhartt jacket and go down to somebody's farm.
Have a beer.
And maybe milk a cow.
Yes.
And it turned out that none of that was true.
Maybe milk a
When
cow.
Donald Trump came along, he didn't do any of that stuff.
Look at this.
He was just a conduit for their rage, their anger, their resentment. And that turned out to be what they wanted. And it wasn't really about the material conditions of their lives, because he didn't improve their lives, but he got more support in rural areas in 2020 than he had in 2016, despite the fact that none of their problems had gotten any better under him.
Okay, so because
he didn't
they voted
run on
for
not
him,
materially improving their lives, and I don't know that that's even true.
Well, the whole premise that he's saying here, he's saying, okay, so they are, racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, anti-gay, right? They have some legitimate grievances that they voted for Trump thinking he was going to solve them. But because he didn't solve them in his first term, the fact that they're going to line up and vote for him again proves that they don't really care about those grievances.
Well, you could make that case about Obama.
Exactly. That was my point. You could make the exact same point about the Democratic Party. Well, Joe Biden didn't pass paid family leave or a public option. He said he was going to. He didn't. He didn't raise the minimum wage, even though he said he was going to. So now all the Democrats who line up and vote for Joe Biden this year, is it fair to say they don't care about those things? Is it fair to say, well, they must have been lying when they said that they support paid family leave because Joe Biden didn't give it to them and they're voting for him anyway? That's the logic he's making. These guys have a book deal. These guys have a book deal. This is the level of thinking from people who have a book deal. You can get a book deal if you're as dumb as these two, if you parrot the same talking points that they parrot.
Well, also, this kind of thing makes me fucking ballistic, because it is really all this very aristocratic framing. The same exact qualities in the aristocratic class that they are a part of, the cultural elites that they are members in good standing of. Everything they're saying here about white rural voters, you could very easily say about their own class. You're inclined to conspiracy theories. You guys ran around talking about fucking Russiagate for years. Right. For years. This crazy theory with no particular evidence attached to it.
Rachel Maddow's at it again. She's going to say Trump is not going to leave this time when he wins because they're going to prosecute. Right. Yeah.
But they're the ones who are inclined to conspiracy theories. Whenever they frame racism, this comes up too. We're doing it later in the week. Time ran this cover story, The New Anti-Semitism. And one of the lines that really jumped out at me in that is, well, anti-Semitism always comes up when populism rears its head with its us versus them. They just hate the people. They hate democratic processes. They hate and despise popular movements. The best book out there on this is Thomas Frank's last book, The People Know, where he shows they've always done this. They've always cast any kind of popular movement as being ignorant and retrograde. Excuse me, who were the members of all those restrictive country clubs and golf courses, some of which only desegregated in the last couple of decades? Who are those? Are those the popular people? That's populists who are racist? Really? So aristocrats, wealthy people have always been known for their tendency to be welcoming and open-minded about people who are not white. Is that what you're saying? The rich have been known for their openness to race mixing and miscegenation, and that
Right.
they've been at the forefront of being open to that. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, yeah, and that's actually a very important point, because as much as Trump's inroads with the white working class are what propelled him to victory in 2016, that made the difference on the margins, it's also true that generally Trump's voters skewed more PMC than Democratic voters as a whole. Now, that could be a little confusing because the inroads that he made with working class voters are what made those Rust Belt states tight and gave him the chance to win, right? So that was absolutely operational to his victory. But broadly speaking, it's still the small business owner, the sort of petty bourgeois, if you will, who are mostly white, who actually put Trump over the finish line because they tend to vote Republican every time. So it's amazing that the title of this book is not just White Rage, because that would encompass the sort of PMC, small business owner, upper middle class, typical Republican voter. No, white rural rage. So they make a specific point to single out the working or working poor or poor white voter as the threat to democracy, not the country club Republicans who vote Republican every time, who voted for Trump. They're not the threat. They're not the threat because they are of our class background. No, it's the poor whites who are the threat.
Exactly. And then what they're saying with the let's be careful, we're in West Berlin, with the COVID denialism, you're the ones who were running around saying the lab leak was just absolutely impossible until it wasn't. You couldn't even talk about that on platforms like this.
No,
you
couldn't
would immediately
even say it.
get taken down. And now, more and more it's coming out. Chris Cuomo, hardly a fiery radical, Jimmy retweeted this, just had his own doctor on talking about all of these side effects that are coming up with people who have taken the vaccine. And this has not been discussed. So who were really the denialists? You've been denying for years that there were all of these side effects associated with it. Remember, it didn't affect women's menstrual cycles until it did, right? So were they really wrong? Were they really wrong? And when you actually look at how states that did not follow the prescription of very strict lockdowns performed, a lot of them performed better, and most of them did not perform worse. So the people who really said, maybe there's another way, in hindsight, they were fucking right. They were right. So what are you talking about? Denying what? What were they wrong about exactly? I don't know a lot of people running around saying COVID doesn't exist. But if they say, hey, it wasn't worth ending the world over something with less than a 1% mortality rate, that's not crazy. That's a legitimate position.
Let me go to part B of this, because we also had a new poll in the New York Times come out today, I believe, or yesterday. But it definitely came out over the weekend, which suggests that the poor whites, the uneducated whites, are not the only group that is propelling Trump to a likely victory over Joe Biden in November. Voters doubt Biden's leadership and favor Trump. Times Siena poll finds. Let's go to this breakdown. So it's 48-43 Trump overall. But if you look here amongst the non-white voters, Donald Trump, 23% of black voters, which is way, way, way higher than the Republican typically gets. And look at this. Amongst Hispanic voters, 46-40. 46-40. Look at that. Trump winning outright amongst Hispanic voters. Now, as for their argument here about class, well, look at this. Non-white, no college degree, Biden only with a 6% advantage. That is almost even amongst non-whites with no college. So it's not just the white rural rage that is endangering Joe Biden in November, is it? Doesn't seem to be.
Look, elites love to punch down, and poor white people are the last group you're allowed to punch down on. That is why they are so obsessed with them. They need a scapegoat. You cannot scapegoat any other group anymore. That's the last group they're allowed to scapegoat for the country's problems with. What's the end game there? Don't look at us. Don't look at us. Don't blame the problems of the country on us. Blame it on people with no money and no power. And that's the last group that fits that definition that you're allowed to write a book like this about.
Right. Indeed. Indeed. All right, let's go on here. Seb Griffiths. Wait, I thought Locals was an escort site. Whoops. Thank you. Thank you. It's all on Buck's YouTube video uploaded 8 days ago from today. Nothing but liberal Zionist BS. Both siding what's going on in Gaza is unforgivable. I agree.
I'm gonna spill the tea, man. I tried to get Buck on when I was hosting Jimmy's, and he blew me off. Maybe that's why. I was a little surprised, man, because he usually wants to preach the gospel of anti-gender ideology anywhere you invite him, and that's a bigger platform that usually gets invited on, and I never heard back from him. Maybe that's why.
No response. Response. What do we have to say, Jimmy? Do we have to say that the side effects are rare and that it's safe and effective and you should follow all CDC guidelines, right?
Safe and effective. It's all safe and effective.
Biscuit Maker. Keaton, you have an infectious laugh. Well, thank you, Biscuit Maker. Appreciate that. Stephen Hayes, always take the political high road unless opponents' political parts intruding in front of the world's face religion show opposition sharply. Sorry. Always take political high road unless opponents' political parts. Oh, okay, I get it. World's face region show opposition sharply in the nuts. Thank you, Stephen Hayes. Appreciate that. All right, let's take a look at some Rumble rants. There is a photo that Chris Evans, Captain America, went to Israel to sign on the missiles to kill kids in Gaza and smiling with IDF soldiers. Is that right? I didn't see that one. I did not see that one.
That's terrible.
We got to let Ian know about that because he wore his Captain America shirt, I'm sure not knowing that. So we'll have to message Ian.
When Captain America massacres people in Gaza.
Yeah, right, exactly. Ilhan was asked at Minneapolis Town Hall if she endorses Biden. Was that a photo that you were linking to? Is there a link in that? Because I can't open a link here. It doesn't show up on our end. Louise Brooks, it's like telling the innocent person on death row, we will push the execution out 6 weeks. It'll be fine. So performative and only because of Michigan. Yes, indeed. Of course. Yeah, Luis de la Cruz, spring break ceasefire. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Singing bicycle, Rishi Sunak, high risk anus. Thank you. Russell, I feel like, Roy the Goy, your eyebrows are very judgmental and accusatory. Does he look that way because of his eyebrows now? Your eyebrows look normal to me.
Really? Maybe it's the lighting.
No, they seem fine. They seem normal to me.
I'm able to do that thing.
There you go. Oh, yeah, that's good. 6 weeks for Israel to rearm and deal with its messed up economy. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. Henry Deshazo. Russell, Dad, darn it, Russell, you sparked a wanderlust in me, and I need to start traveling.
Hey, listen. Honestly, if there is anything that really stayed with me from my travels, it was going to the ruins in Greece and Rome. And okay, you walk through a cemetery, you get that sense of like your own mortality. Walk through the cemetery of an entire civilization. That's what it's like walking through the Forum, walking around the Greek ruins of Delos. It really brings home to you. Man, whatever excuses you have for not doing the things you want to do, they're nonsense, man. You're gonna wind up being a forgotten pile of dust and ruins with all of these people.
All right, let's go to segment number 6, right? That's where we are, moving right along here. Beautiful. All right, not too bad. Okay, folks. The United States now is airdropping aid, food, meals into Ukraine. Sorry, Gaza. Sorry, I didn't mean. Hold on. Let's go to Joe Biden here. Let's get this straight. Make sure.
That was a workmanlike job going into that.
I forget exactly what it is. Maybe he knows better than me.
With our friends in Jordan and others. We're going to join in the coming days. We're going to join with our friends in Jordan and others in providing airdrops of additional food and supplies into Ukraine.
Oh, it
and
is
seek
Ukraine.
to continue to open up other avenues into Ukraine, including the possibility of a marine corridor to deliver large amounts of humanitarian assistance.
So it is Ukraine, right? I see, because when I Googled it, I couldn't find anything about airdrops of food and aid into Ukraine. I saw this. This says U.S. begins airdrops of humanitarian aid in Gaza. That makes more sense.
He's at the top of his game.
I mean, Gaza is a lot smaller than Ukraine. We could still get aid into Ukraine through other means, right? I mean, Ukraine's got a huge border. There's only fighting in some of Ukraine. So I'm going to go with Gaza. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the president may have misspoke. He may have just gotten that wrong, which is amazing because he's very sharp. As we know, he has all his faculties about him. He's ready to go. He's good to go. All these naysayers saying he's losing his mind. We know that's not true. And so it's a tough call. Like, I don't know who to believe, Joe Biden or the New York Times. Yeah. But because it makes sense, it just makes sense geographically and logistically. It makes sense that they'd be going into Gaza. Although when you think about it, logistically, it really doesn't make sense that we'd have to drop aid into Gaza through the air because Israel's our ally. So why would we have to drop aid in on Gaza from the air when it's our ally doing the campaign, right? You would think Israel, wonderful ally of the United States, grateful for all the support we've given them through their very carefully operated military operation, you'd think they would cooperate and let us get the aid in so we wouldn't have to drop it from the air. So that's why that didn't really make sense either. But the New York Times says U.S. begins airdrops of humanitarian aid in Gaza. 3 Air Force cargo planes dropped 38,000 ready-to-eat meals in Gaza. But critics called that insufficient. See, this is another thing that doesn't make sense. There's 2 million people in Gaza who are starving. 38,000, that doesn't seem like anywhere near enough. Again, this story just gets more confusing as you go, right? You have the president saying we're dropping aid into Ukraine, but the photos and the write-up seem to suggest that we're dropping it into Gaza, even though Israel's our ally, so why would we have to circumvent our ally? This whole thing is very confusing, but here's some photo evidence. Those don't look like Ukrainians to me. I don't mean to profile, but they look more like Gazans to me. So I guess Gaza is the answer.
These are this is the new population of Ukraine because they killed everybody else.
Yeah, right.
They're moving the migrants in there.
Okay, so it looks like Gaza it is. The New York Times writes, the United States made its first airdrops of humanitarian aid into Gaza on Saturday as the Biden administration tried to prevent a greater humanitarian disaster in the Palestinian territory. 3 U.S. Air Force cargo planes airdropped 38,000 ready-to-eat meals in a joint operation with the Jordanian Air Force, U.S. Central Command said in a statement on Saturday. The airdrops, which some aid experts, criticized as insufficient and largely symbolic, contribute to, quote, ongoing U.S. government efforts to provide life-saving humanitarian assistance to the people in Gaza, the statement said. We are conducting planning for potential follow-on airborne aid delivery missions. The operation was intended to be the first in a sustained campaign of airdrops, the official said, adding that the United States is also exploring other avenues of bringing more aid into Gaza, including by sea. The official and others at the briefing spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss military operations and diplomatic efforts. The drops came a day after President Biden said the United States would find new ways to get aid to Palestinians in desperate need because of Israel's 5-month military campaign to destroy Hamas. It also comes 2 days after more than 100 Palestinians were killed as Israeli forces opened fire around a convoy of aid trucks in northern Gaza. We have a segment on that coming up later. Although Mr. Biden has implored Israel, which has sealed its border with Gaza, to allow more aid in, the demand for food, water, and medicine after nearly 5 months of war there remains huge. Those conditions have put Mr. Biden under political pressure to do more to help the Palestinians, even as the U.S. supplies Israel with military hardware. I forget the exact dimensions, I should have looked this up again, of the Gaza Strip, but it's a very small piece of land. Yep. And like I said, in all seriousness, bit earlier notwithstanding, there's no fucking reason why we should be having to drop meals in from the air when it is our ally conducting the campaign. Does that make any sense at all? Does that make any sense at all?
We're Israel's bitch.
Yeah.
That's why Netanyahu's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if there's a ceasefire. I'm going in anyway. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck your election. I'll get a better deal with Trump anyway. What does he give a shit if Joe Biden goes down?
No,
the only power Biden has is, hey, we're going to cut you off, but he's owned. He's owned by the arms manufacturers. He's owned by AIPAC. So he's not going to do that. We do not have a democratic government. We have an oligarchy. That is why the popular will, there was that Stanford study years back where they demonstrated the public will has less than a 1% impact on legislation.
Yeah, it's just incredible. It's just
it
absolutely
doesn't
incredible.
matter what the people want. That's why I say, in the way that I can say it here, we're past regular order democracy. We're past it. We're past it. You can't solve these problems with elections anymore.
There was the meme that went around today of U.S. airplanes and Israeli aircraft dropping probably 20 bombs on Gaza and then a few loaves of bread interspersed throughout there. That's what you have. That's the other element of this. That's the other element of this. Now the people in Gaza have to guess when a plane flies overhead. Is this the plane that's going to kill us in half a second, or is this the plane that's going to drop food on us?
I saw a meme that said no sooner did the food get airdropped than the bombing commenced.
Of course.
How are they supposed to distribute food under? It's just the longer this goes on, the more these horrors multiply. You just feel so helpless because we just do not have a government that has any interest in the popular will. It just doesn't exist. Not here, not in England. We can see the way they're reacting to Galloway. That's why increasingly I've been saying this is a battle really for the future of society, whether the future is going to be governed by the people or whether we're going to be governed by a small elite class that calls identity politics equality without ever addressing economics, class, or militarism.
Yes, indeed. Well said. All right, let's go to some Rumble rants and super chats here. There we go. White Rural Rage. If your barbecue wasn't sponsored by a bail bonds company, it ain't barbecue. That's a good one. Thank you, Stoop Sign. Appreciate that. Okay. Electronic Intifada and Anti-Empire Project say the BB Biden ceasefire proposal was not sent to Hamas. This was a play to give this was a ploy, to give Gazans false hope so they would pressure Hamas to accept BB's terms. Well, but the terms are not real ceasefire terms. Netanyahu said we're going into Rafah to finish the job anyway. Like there is no way for Gaza to save itself from complete destruction, and that's not speculation on my part. That's not translation from any American source. That's straight from Netanyahu. We've eliminated 18 out of 24 battalions or whatever the fuck he said. He said we've gotten most of the job done. Rafah is the rest, and we have to do Rafah before we stop. So there's nothing that Hamas could do between now and then that would stop absent a surrender, and they're not going to surrender. They already offered the hostages back in exchange for a 4.5-month ceasefire. So if that's not a surrender, I mean, that's as close as you're going to get to it, right? And that wasn't good enough. They said that's not serious. That's a non-starter. What did he say? I forget what his exact word for it was.
Well, now they're boycotting the talks because Hamas won't give them a list of hostages.
Right. Yeah.
Of the ones that are still alive.
Yeah, no, look, it's not a serious argument. It's not a serious argument. A full hostage exchange was on the table with a 4.5-month ceasefire. And Netanyahu said that is, I think he called it delusional. I believe that was the exact word he used, meaning we're not going to stop bombing until we've cleared everything out. And so there's not going to be a ceasefire until that happens. That's Netanyahu said that on Channel 2 last week. He said, if we have to wait 6 weeks to invade Rafah, we'll wait 6 weeks. If we don't, we won't. That's that. That's that. Luis de la Cruz, white academic douche. Yeah, there we go. U.S. airdrops aid into Skid Row. Thank you, Luis de la Cruz. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go to some super chats. Then we got a couple more things to do here, and then we are switching to Rumble, folks. So we got 2,700 of you here. We're going to switch to Rumble soon, but not quite yet. Debbie Wasserman Schultz had her boys, the Awan brothers, deal. Oh, okay, with such Rich, they were pros, so he had to be finished off in the emergency room. Interesting. Like I said, that was safe and effective treatment. Black Thoughts, the ceasefire is for Ramadan, pure trickery. If I had to guess, I would say there's not even going to be a ceasefire. That would be my guess. That they won't even do this.
It doesn't look like it, because Netanyahu could give a fuck. He could give a fuck what Biden wants, what the United States wants, because either way, if Trump wins, he's even better off. So why negotiate? Why negotiate given that we do not have a democracy? They're not. It doesn't matter what the people want. We're going to keep giving them money. So what's there to motivate him?
Back from the road, the only reason Kamala called for a ceasefire is to twist the resistance's arm toward a bad deal and wash their hands before thousands starve during Ramadan. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Be great to hear Barbara Walters review White Rural Rage. Yeah. She's one of the most overrated journalists of all time, I think. Should have called the book White Liberal Jealousy. There you go. Back from the road says deviled eggs is cuisine. Anything less is fighting words. Thank you, Back from the road.
As a fan of mayonnaise, I'm forced to agree with you.
He agrees. Russell agrees. Sparky, when was the last time anyone saw Trump wear a Carhartt jacket? How does he manage to get through? Yeah, you know who does wear Carhartt? John Fetterman. Yeah, we're going to talk about John Fetterman in just a second, actually. In fact, let's do that right now. Before we do that, though, I do want to remind people we are going to be switching to Rumble after this next segment. This next segment is a two-parter, after which we'll be switching to Rumble. So our producer, Jake, created this lovely redirect link where if you go to dodissidents.com/Rumble, that takes you to our current Rumble stream. So this will take you right to the show, so you won't miss a beat. Okay. But whether or not you're going to hang out with us on Rumble tonight, we need you to follow our Rumble channel, because this Wednesday at 2 p.m., we are doing a Rumble exclusive live stream with our friend Anish Shivani. That's right. We're doing 4 shows a week now, thanks to our patrons and paid Substackers and paid Locals members. They gave us the time to do that. Those shows are free and open to everybody, but some of them, including this week's, will be Rumble exclusive. So you got to go over there and follow us there. And join our Substack, dodissidents.substack.com. This is going to become very important this week, because I know for a fact on Thursday morning when we're back here on YouTube, some of you guys are going to say, where were you yesterday? I thought there was a show yesterday. We didn't see you. That's because you're not on the newsletter, and you probably forgot that we are on Rumble exclusively this Tuesday. So join for free, dodissidents.substack.com. That's our newsletter. You'll get an email the morning of every show, hours in advance, letting you know when and where the show is going to be. So make sure you sign up for our free newsletter on Substack, and make sure you follow us over on Rumble. That's dodissidents.com/Rumble. That'll take you to this stream, and you hit the follow button. Simple as that. All right. Before we end the YouTube show, though, we do have a 2-part segment here. This is more horrible news out of Gaza. Israel faces mounting condemnation over the killing of Palestinians in Gaza City aid distribution melee. A distribution melee. Man, they will come up with a lot of words to skate around what this actually was, which was a massacre. It's being called the Flour Massacre because they were passing out flour, food, to the starving people in northern Gaza. So the people who were evacuated to the south, they went all the way back up to the north to get this aid convoy, this food convoy. And we're going to talk a bit about what happened. China and Turkey joined Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan on Friday in condemning Israeli forces for firing on Palestinians waiting for the delivery of aid in Gaza the previous day, with its foreign ministry calling the event, quote, yet another crime against humanity. France called for an independent investigation into the incident. We will ask for explanations, and there will have to be an independent probe to determine what happened, French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné, so hope I said that right, told the country's inter-broadcast on Friday. China's foreign ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said Beijing was shocked and strongly condemned the killing of civilians, adding a call for the relevant parties, especially Israel, to cease fire and end the fighting immediately, earnestly protect civilian safety, ensure that humanitarian aid can enter, and avoid an even more serious humanitarian disaster. Israel said many of the dead were trampled in a chaotic crush for the food aid. I'm assuming that meant chaotic rush. So it's probably a typo on their part for the food aid, and that its troops only fired when they felt endangered by the crowd. I wonder why there was a chaotic rush for the food aid. Maybe it's because 2 million people are starving, half a million facing immediate risk of famine, and there's obviously not enough food to feed everyone there. So it's kind of a first come, first serve thing, is it not? That would mean that the people would be running, not walking quietly toward the aid trucks, right? Pre-dawn video broadcast by the Al Jazeera network captured the moment gunfire erupted as thousands of desperate Palestinians gathered in the hope of receiving food as a rare humanitarian convoy pulled into the area. Tracer ammunition rounds can be seen streaking across the sky in the video from the direction of an Israeli military position. CBS News correspondent Imtiaz Tiab, sorry if I got that name wrong, reported that as the sun rose, the harrowing aftermath of the melee was laid bare. Medics say dozens were killed and hundreds injured, and doctors at Gaza City's barely functioning hospitals told CBS News the majority of the deaths were from gunshot wounds. So they were not stampeded. Most of them were treated for gunshot wounds, and the deaths were mostly from gunshot wounds. Those guns could only have been coming from one side. Of course, these people coming to the food trucks were not armed themselves. The IDF released a heavily edited clip of grainy drone video that shows thousands of people clamber around the aid trucks, which it said showed how many people had been killed in a stampede. But the IDF acknowledged that forces opened fire on a smaller group of people whom it said posed an imminent threat, quote unquote, to the soldiers. So here's a still
They're
of the
coming right at
video
us
that they're talking about. Yeah, exactly. Asked by CBS News how that threat was defined and whether any of the Palestinians had shot at the Israeli soldiers, IDF spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner said anybody approaching the forces after being warned not to was deemed to pose a threat. Witnesses don't deny a desperate rush for food in the starved city. Well, no shit. There's a desperate rush for food in the starved city. Said the Israeli troops opened fire quickly and without provocation. We ran towards the food aid. Eyewitness Anwar Halewa said the soldiers then started firing at us, and so we left the food and ran. Palestinian leaders have called the incident in Gaza a heinous massacre. Let's go to one more slide here. President Biden has called it a tragic and alarming incident. Not a heinous massacre, but a tragic and alarming incident. And he spoke with the leaders of Egypt and Qatar again, with which the U.S. has been trying to help negotiate a new ceasefire and hostage release agreement between Israel and Hamas. Any agreement would also likely include a significant increase in the flow of aid into Gaza, where the UN says some 500,000 people are facing acute starvation. So under those circumstances, it's not surprising at all that they would be running towards the food aid because there's obviously not enough food for everyone.
Imagine that.
Not enough food for everyone. So yes, this is, as this slide says, a heinous massacre. You know who else didn't consider this a heinous massacre? John Fetterman. He quote tweeted this very article that we just read. And he said, I reject statements from nations with atrocious human rights records. China, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. I got news for you.
United States?
Yeah, we got a pretty heinous human rights record right now also. Without a doubt, this is a humanitarian tragedy. Hamas alone owns this calamity. We must demand Hamas free the hostages and surrender, ending suffering, death, and chaos. Once again, a full hostage exchange was already on the table. The condition was that Israel not flatten the last semi-functioning city, which it's really not if you looked at the CNN report we showed a couple weeks ago. Rafah's already in ruins. It's just a matter of not massacring tens of thousands of more there, which is what's going to happen if they invade on the ground. But this guy, no, I reject those statements from nations with atrocious human rights records like China, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. You really think you're in a position to judge any other country for their human rights records? We're having to drop food into Gaza now. What's that?
Two of which are our allies. So
yeah, two of which are our allies. That's right.
About it.
That's right. We're having to drop aid in. We're having to drop food into Gaza now from the sky because this happened. Because the Israelis cannot be trusted to bring food to starving people without slaughtering 100 of them. That's why we're dropping aid in from the air right now. Because we can't get it to them on the ground, because the IDF cannot be trusted not to turn an aid convoy into a bloodbath.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, these people are just the absolute scum of the earth. It's just a level of human evil and willingness to support that evil that I think would have been inconceivable even a year ago, that Israel would just commit these kinds of just open crimes against humanity. And I'm not being fanciful. I mean by the legal definition. They're just constantly, almost daily, committing crimes against humanity. And to have most of the Western world just continuing to support this materially and ideologically, it just gets more and more horrifying and shocking. And for us as people of goodwill who are horrified by this and want to help these people, it's just hard to see the way forward. Yes, I think Israel is done as being a part of the family of nations. It's never going to recover from this. But that's small comfort to these poor people. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine being where they are right now?
Of course. Well, that's why the objective right now has to be to live. Like the people trapped in Gaza right now have to figure out a way to survive this. And if that means fleeing to Egypt, if Egypt will have them, and I understand that they won't at this moment, but I think the goal has to be to survive this. There will be justice for this. There will be justice for this because, as Russell said, Israel's not going to be welcome. They're not going to be a member in good standing with the world community for much longer, even with our backing. Right?
Yeah, and these desperate attempts to equate being anti-Zionist with being anti-Semitic, it's just not going to take. It's not going to take.
Of course
not. You can't just piss on everyone's leg and tell them it's raining. People can see what the fuck is happening here. It's that very, very small number of people who are just completely indoctrinated who will accept that. And I've said this from the beginning. I've seen a lot of people who normally just go along with shit, who are all like, well, Azov might be Nazis, but there are Nazis who are not going along with this. Right. This is just, it's too fucking much. You just have to be a bone-deep, brainwashed Zionist to not see that this is fucking daily genocide, that this is daily war crimes.
Yeah, I mean, this fucking piece of shit here, Hamas alone owns this. This was not a military operation, idiot. This was an aid convoy. This was a shipment of food. So what the hell are you talking about? How is anyone responsible for this but the people who were delivering the food who opened fire on the crowd?
Well,
who opened fire on the crowd.
What Sunak said in his speech, talking about now I've been to several protests now, and I never hear these people using genocidal rhetoric. Now they will try to say from the river to the sea is genocidal, but it is not. That's a vision of one nation with equal democracy.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite.
For everybody. It's the opposite.
A statement of equality and peace and coexistence.
Right. Now, if you take that to mean the dismantling of the Israeli state as it exists, there is absolutely nothing genocidal or untoward about that. That is the correct moral position when you're dealing with a fascist apartheid ethno-state. Of course you want that state dismantled. Was it wrong to say you wanted the South African state dismantled? The Nazi state dismantled?
Exactly.
Was that morally wrong? You're
exactly. They weren't talking about the eradication of South Africa or Germany. If you notice, both of those states still exist. They don't. Right. They just don't exist as they did before because the way they did before was blatantly unjust and severely unjust. So from the river to the sea doesn't even mean getting Israel to be a different country. It just means one state, equal rights. Right? South Africa is still a state. South Africans are still a people. So is Germany. So are Germans. Right? It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
And if you can't accept that idea, which Israelis can't,
then you're the genocidal one. It sounds like
you're the genocidal one. I mean, we talked about that Jim Zogby poll, where when he proposed the idea of a one-state solution, both Israelis and Palestinians liked the idea. For Palestinians, it meant everybody. And for Jews, it meant you get rid of all the Arabs. For Zionists, I should say. For Israelis.
Indeed. Stephen Hayes, White Rage is the most popular white wine this year. Closely followed by Palestinian Blood Red. Ukrainian Drek is not doing well this season. Good one. Let's give Stephen Hayes a cowbell. He's been hitting us up a lot tonight.
We have the best people.
We have the best people. He's got another good one here. I like this one, too. This is for the real winos. Only the real winos will know what you're talking about here. But shout out to Stephen Hayes. Keaton said Petit Beaujolais. Gotcha. A species thought extinct since 1919. Has there been a sighting or a tasting? Good one. The Beaujolais. That's the French wine that you're supposed to... the red wine that you're supposed to drink cold. I know that one. That's because I said Petit Bourgeois. Petit Beaujolais. Very good, Stephen. Quick on your feet. Quick-witted there. Salamander Fry. Thanks for the $5. You guys are all right. Thank you, Salamander Fry. Appreciate that. Henry DeShazo, screw the overland route. There's an entire seaway in which is blockaded, and no one talks about that. Well, actually, they're going to start bringing food in by the sea as well now, I heard. Build a better world with bricks, says Sparky. Thank you. Manuel Rivera, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that very much. Stephen Hayes at Henry DeShazo. Oh, now you're going to super chat at other people. We got a little super chat conversation going. Seaway blockaded. Remember last Gaza relief sea effort, Israeli brutality and killing. I think we're going to start sending food in via the sea too. I did hear that today, unless I'm mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's on. Henry DeShazo, Rumble did not make it easy to find the stream. Sometimes you have to go to like our page and then just look under videos and live streams. But the redirect link that Jake had, dodissidents.com/Rumble, that should take you right to this stream. I tested it earlier. That works very well. Thank you, Jake. I lived under the Zionist occupation in the 80s. We saw this coming. Wow. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. What? Wow. Appreciate that. $9.99. Russell's eyebrows, says Stephen Hayes. Shelter me in summer. Keep me more or less warm in winter, depending on where we are. Itch all the time, damn it. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that very much. Whoa, boys, you're talking about a nuclear power, and you think they may fall in line. Henry DeShazo, thank you for the $5. Yes, Russell, it's evil and heart-wrenching. Thank you for the $1.99. Galloway, Nixon, 24, says Sparky. Thank you for that. Okay, folks, we have one more segment to go, and then we are going to be switching to Rumble for our last segment of the show, plus the Q&A. This is sort of a B part, so we just talked about the Israeli food aid convoy turned into a violent massacre in which Israeli soldiers opened fire on the crowd of Palestinians who were running towards the food convoy. Imagine being on the brink of starvation, knowing that there's not enough food to go around, and you see a truck with food, and you run, not walk, in an orderly fashion to that convoy. Over 100 killed, most of them with gunshot wounds. Most of them treated for gunshot wounds at the hospital. So it was not a stampede, as the IDF initially tried to say. Here's Christian Amanpour talking about what did you say about Mark Regev? What did you say? He's
a vampire's familiar.
A vampire's familiar. Yes, indeed. Here she is asking him for clarification about the incident.
I think the first question, if you could answer, is who were these aid? Who was this aid being driven in by or for? The UN and the normal, known aid agencies said that they had nothing to do with it. Do you know who it was?
I know the following, that in order to help alleviate the food shortage in Gaza, that we authorized a convoy of, I think, some 30 trucks entered Gaza last night, headed for the northern Gaza Strip. And this shows that Israel is interested in seeing aid and foodstuffs reach the civilian population. Unfortunately, we saw a situation where there was a mass casualty tragedy, where it looked like the civilians were storming the trucks, trying to take the food.
500,000 are at risk of acute starvation. You come in there with a few trucks worth of food. You don't expect them to run towards the truck?
I thought they had retired him back to the castle in Transylvania.
Yeah, I thought they got a nice-looking woman out to say this. Now,
they had a nice-looking woman, right? You know what it must be, because as the mass rape story is falling apart, they decided to go back to a dude.
Maybe they should have that woman who just hosted SNL this week do it. Who's the woman who did the Euphoria?
Sweeney?
Yeah, they should have her come on. I'm sure people would buy it.
Nobody's going to argue with her.
Yeah, nobody's going to argue with her.
You put out the Israeli Renfield.
Yeah, exactly. That's who you call this guy, the Renfield. That's who you call this guy before. Yes.
Out of desperation, and people, a crowd was pushing and shoving, and people were killed. I can't tell you the exact numbers. I don't, as you know, don't trust the numbers put out by the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health in Gaza. There were reports that maybe the drivers were driving over parts of the crowd. It appears to be a tragedy, but I can tell you...
Again, the majority of deaths, gunshot wounds. This idea that, they were stampeded under each other's feet or that trucks ran them over. I mean, this is such obvious nonsense. We know CBS News reported, right, that most of the deaths were from gunshots. There's only one direction those gunshots could have been fired from.
Directly in any way.
What?
When you say not involved...
Let's hear this. Let's hear this whopper.
And people were killed. I can't tell you the exact numbers. I don't, as you know, don't trust the numbers put out by the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health in Gaza. There were reports that maybe the drivers were driving over parts of the crowd. It appears to be a tragedy, but I can tell you Israel was not involved directly in any way.
Israel was
When
not
you say
involved directly in any way.
What do you mean? I mean, you enabled this convoy, as you said, and your forces are there on the ground and open fire. They said it themselves. What does that mean, not involved in any way?
So this was, we allowed the aid to come in. We were involved that way. That's our policy, to allow food to go into Gaza for the civilian population.
You delivered the food. You didn't just allow it to go in. It was your trucks that were delivering the food, correct? It was your guns that were fired on the crowd, correct? We allowed... She just said at the beginning, no one else brought this food in. So it was the Israelis who brought the food in. So what are you talking about? We allowed the food to go in. You brought the food in, they ran towards the trucks, and you opened fire on the crowd. That's what happened. It's very obvious that's what happened. Every outlet is reporting that's what happened. Now you're saying we weren't involved directly in any way? We allowed the food in?
Mark Regev is Israeli deception made flesh. Like, he just is absolutely fucking shameless. I mean, the man, to say the things that he says and sleep at night, I mean, he just has to be a stone cold sociopath. You see him in these interviews, and he just, I mean, that's who you want for this job, I guess. You know, if you got to send somebody out who's gonna be a reliable genocide denier. This is the guy you get. You know, he will just, it doesn't matter what you throw at him. He will just lie, redirect, obfuscate, one of the tricks that he likes to pull, and I see him doing it in this interview, is to feign compassion and horror at what's befallen the Palestinian people as if it's not their fault. He's just, this guy's the scum of the earth.
Indeed.
But in the incident of people storming the trucks and the way the truck drivers behaved and people getting squashed and pressed and apparently there being mass casualties, Israel was not there on the ground.
Okay, but they did open fire and people were killed. So I'm completely confused by what you're saying because they admitted, the IDF spokesman said it on our air, that they opened fire.
That's a separate incident.
Okay.
Not connected to the tragedy with the trucks. That was different place, different time.
I mean, at what point is someone like Christian Amanpour just going to call this guy what he is? You're a psychotic, mass-murdering liar. You're clearly lying. We were not involved on the ground. What are you talking about? She says, I'm confused. I'm completely confused. What's confusing about it? The guy's a fucking liar. Obviously, they were there on the ground. What do you mean they weren't there on the ground? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
He's trying to say that the IDF guy was referring to something else.
Yeah, some other incidents in which 100 people were killed, most of whom suffered gunshot wounds, according to the hospital and according to every outlet that has reported on this. Like, what are you talking about? You're completely confused. I mean, I don't understand what it would take to just call this guy what he is and call all of these apologists what they are. I mean, this guy, that is just an absolute bald-faced lie, and it's a ballsy lie because it's so blatantly untrue. It's just so on its face absurd that how do you go on and come out of that interview without being called a psychotic, lying murderer?
Well, if you talk to the real, deep in the Kool-Aid kind of Zionists, you think MSNBC viewers live in a parallel universe? You talk to those people, they'll tell you, oh, Hamas has declined 8 or 9 peace proposals. Where the fuck are you getting this from? Because they hear narratives from people like this that we don't even see.
Right.
Like if you're a real Zionist, they're going to places for the news that we're not even aware of.
We've talked about this at length. I mean, we've shown on occasion some snippets from Israeli media. Like they're even more blatant than this. We get the sanitized version of, Israeli propaganda, right? They send the guys like that. Those are the nice guys they send to us to talk to the West, to talk to the Americans. What they tell each other and their own people there is just even more absurd, even more extreme. That's why you have a population that is brainwashed. I mean, they are brainwashed. It is a brainwashed group of people. It really is.
But when you look at how CBS covered this, when you look at how Amanpour interviewed him, they've lost. They've lost. This is why I say they're never going to be able to rejoin the family of nations. When you've got these are not, CNN is not known for its fiery pushback on Zionist propaganda. When you're getting this kind of an interview, I mean, they're only one step away from calling out these people as genocidal maniacs. They're this close to it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be possible, I don't think, to avoid that terminology and this is why I don't think there's going to be a 6-week pause, because if there is a 6-week pause, I think Biden is going to try and convince them not to go into Rafah, and they're going to do it anyway. And past that point, there's going to be no avoiding those kinds of words. That's why I don't think it's going to happen. That's why I think all this talk of a temporary pause is just talk. I think Biden and Harris, I think they know that Netanyahu is going to blow them off, because I think if they go 6 weeks where they try and work something out and then he goes in and just ravages Rafah anyway, at that point, there's going to be no avoiding that language. There's just going to be no avoiding from anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah, they're just giving themselves plausible deniability. We called for a ceasefire.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah, indeed. David Santucci, thanks for the $10. Sorry I'm late to the party, but did you guys notice the heckler screaming at Rishi Sunak at the beginning of his speech? I did hear somebody yell.
I heard somebody in the background. I couldn't hear what they were saying.
Indeed. Thank you. Stephen Hayes, China has a most clear view of massacres at food aid points than any other country in the world. Reference Japanese crimes, Shanghai and Nanjing. News for Israel regime is not good in this case. Thank you, Stephen. Jess from the left, did you see Trump at the border? He waved to your migrants on the other side. They chanted Trump, Trump back to him. No, I did not see that. I did not see that.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't paid much attention to Trump and Biden's border visit. There's just been so much other stuff going on. Charles H., thanks for the $5. Can you cover the leaked audio from Germany? It's about bombing of the Crimean Bridge. I heard about that. Yeah, we'll probably get into that this week for sure. Also, body cams on politicians. Yes, thank you, Charles. Steve McNelly, thanks for the $30. Great work, gents. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that generous donation. That's very kind of you. Henry DeShazo, thanks for the $5. Again, I have to ask who's pulling the strings in our conversation. There is a C route. This is fluff. Are you part of the problem or the solution? I don't know what you're talking about. I told you, yeah, there's a C routes. And from what I understand, they're going to start putting aid in through the sea as well. That's all I can tell you. Seb Griffiths, thanks for the $5. I don't trust Hamas's number. Sounds quite smart to those who don't trust the Jewish media. Yeah, well,
similar to those.
What's that?
Quite similar to those.
Similar. Yeah, thank you, Seb. Well, the Washington Post trusts the Gaza Ministry of Health. It's not a fringe. Those aren't fringe numbers there, obviously. Josh Woods, thanks for the £10, and you'll be shocked to find that a similar Kool-Aid has also been heavily drunk by many in Ukraine, Poland, and the Baltic countries when it comes to the Ukrainian war.
Sure.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Yes, absolutely right. Okay, we have some Rumble rants that we're going to take on the Rumble side. Right now, we are going to switch to Rumble for the final segment of our program and the post-show question and answer. So, folks, we need you to head over to dodissidents.com/Rumble. Type that into the URL. That'll take you to this stream. We need you to hit that follow button while you're there. We already have 2,200 of you guys over there. That's amazing. We need everybody else to go over, finish the show with us, and hit that follow button because this Wednesday at 2 p.m. we're doing a Rumble exclusive live stream. So we need you guys signed up there so that you can catch that. And we also need you to sign up to our newsletter, dodissidents.substack.com. Right now, dodissidents.com/Rumble. Head over there, finish off the program with us. Kuznetsky Bassane tried to comment. The Stasi blocked me. All right, we got that one through. Go over to Rumble. They're a lot more lenient over there. They have the nice Stasi over there. So go over there and check us out. dodissidents.com/Rumble. For our final segment, plus the post-show Q&A, we're going to take a 5-minute break to give you guys all a chance to get over there. Callers, Patreon members, paid Substackers, paid Locals members, phone lines are open, so feel free to get on the call-in line while the intermission plays, and we'll see you guys all in 5 minutes over on Rumble. If you're not joining us over there, even though you should, we'll see you back here Tuesday at 9 p.m. Whenever we see you again, we thank you for being here with us on YouTube tonight. Be safe, be well. We'll see you in 5 minutes.
Courage.
Please clap.